The Starr and D'Amico Show is brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. If you're looking for quality gear without overpaying, shop cheapesttshirts.ca. Huge selection for men, women, and kids. Tees, hoodies, headwear, bags, and more. Proud Montreal business. Order today, ship today, delivery tomorrow. That's cheapesttshirts.ca. Local, fast, and affordable. Brought to you by instacustoms.com. Do you need custom gear from a local Montreal business? Instacustoms.com has you covered. Custom shirts, hoodies, hats, and more made your way. Fast turnaround, great quality, and proudly Montreal-based. Check out instacustoms.com. Brought to you by Cabletel. For trusted alarm systems in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, choose Cabletel. Over 20 years of expert installation and top-tier protection for homes and businesses. Check out Cabletel.com. Email them info@Cabletel.com. It's Cabletel. Peace of mind you can count on. Brought to you by Morella's Steakhouse. Looking for an unforgettable night out? Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. It's just 15 minutes from Montreal, serving up premium cuts and bold flavors, and no tax on your bill. Book your table tonight at morellassteakhouse.ca. Taste excellence tonight. Brought to you by Little Bear. Give your pet the best with Little Bear Pet Supply. It's a proudly family-owned business here in Montreal for over 30 years. Chuck, Evie, and their all-star staff have you taken care of with all the top brands at the best prices, and they really care for your pets. Shop online at littlebearonline.com or visit them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. It's Little Bear Pet Supply. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Head over to McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street in the heart of downtown Montreal. Great food, cold drinks, and big games on all the screens. McLean's Pub, good times and great company. Welcome to the live presentation of the Starr and D'Amico Show. It is so good to have NHL hockey back. It is so good to be here on this Friday as we move into the weekend, as we put February in our rear view, and we are one more day closer to spring 2026. There's Marco D'Amico. Hydration is not the word of the day, but always very important. Marco, good to see you, brother. How goes it on this Friday morning?
I mean, listen, I know a lot of Canadiens fans are going to be a little ticked off right now, but
yeah,
I thought it was a well-fought battle yesterday between two teams, right in there for a playoff spot. And again, I all eyes were on Noah Dobson yesterday. Really appreciated the offense that he brought to the Canadiens. It was a real treat to see Matthew Schaefer live. What a talent. What an absolute talent he is already at 18 years old. And I think it's going to be ever more the importance for the Canadiens down the stretch. We're going to get on this, but we're going to have to talk about the defensive structure because unfortunately the Canadiens had this game in the bag the way that they were playing. And we unfortunately let the Islanders back into this game.
Look, and it was clear, early on, a little discombobulation in their own end. Interesting to see, Sam Montembeault got the start and already, the chat was surprised. Like the captain of the Canadiens is in the chat here, Nick Suzuki. I thought Dobson would have gotten the start to more reaction to I wasn't surprised, in all honesty, that Sam Montembeault got the start. At the end of the day, they're going to need both goaltenders, whether you like it or not. And we'll see what happens after Saturday night when they play Washington, a game Jakub Dobson is expected to get the start in. But ultimately, I thought as the first period kind of went on, obviously you had the Matthew Schaefer, like more or less a foot offside. That goal gets called back, the right call. I want to talk about how you defined a distinct kicking motion. I knew Rule 49, Rule 49 in the National Hockey League rulebook says, if you direct the puck and it bounces off a player, a referee, off a goaltender, it's not a goal. But, on Cole Caufield's goal that was disallowed, like, fine, this is a Montreal Canadiens centric channel, but like in my head, brother, it's like I see distinct kicking motion. I see a guy around the net with like a sweeping leg kick, purposely directing the puck into the net. First of all, Caufield, that was a great athletic play by him. And he said after the game, Marco, you were in the room, right? I mean, he said he kicked the puck, but was his intention to score from that angle? I didn't think so, but listen, I mean, that's not the reason they lost the hockey game yesterday. Let's put that on the table now. What'd you think of the distinct? What's a distinct kicking motion to you?
As defined by the league, a goal cannot be scored on a play where an attacking player propels the puck with his skate into the net. That's the first part of it. But the other thing to include is a goal cannot be scored on a play where an attacking player kicks any equipment, stick, glove, even their own skate at the puck, including kicking the blade with his own stick, causing the puck to cross the line. A puck that deflects into the net, often attacking player's skate or the goalie in that matter, does not count and will be considered a distinct kicking motion. So the fact that it was redirected into the net by but because of a distinct kicking motion is what happened here, right? Like if Caufield would have kicked the puck and it would have landed on another Canadian stick, we would not be having this conversation. But because it went from his skate to in front of the net to into the net, that's what, by the rule book, that's why they called it back. It's whether or not you want to debate that was a distinct kicking motion, seeing as he also pivoted in that moment.
Yeah.
But not going to have the Canadiens hat on here. That, to me, that was the right call. It's there's a little bit of a gray area because you have to determine what a distinct kicking motion is. But to me, I think they got that call right. And I don't think that in the end, that was a problem. We're going to look at those little itty bitty things, but I feel like the Canadiens had ample opportunity to put this game away and did not. And so we're going to look back on some of those details and say, hey, why did this happen? Why did that happen? I think at the end of the day, it had very little to do with that play, and it had more to do with what was going on in the Canadiens' defensive zone.
So the Canadiens jump out, they get the first goal, they get the second goal. Noah Dobson, obviously, with a perfect shot to get the party started in a money on the board game. The shot from the point, the Canadiens are up 2-0 against the Islanders. And listen, I mean, the Islander goaltending has been rock solid, top 3 in team save percentage all season. What were you thinking at that point on how Montreal was playing, how they got up to the 2-0 lead? And I guess the follow would be, how did you think the Canadiens were going to handle being up 2-0 at home?
Well, one of the things I'm going to say, like I felt like the Canadiens started extremely rocky, right?
Yes.
Extremely rocky, which obviously led to that disallowed goal. You had Tony DeAngelo that misses the wide open net. Nightmares he's going to have. Well, I mean, they came away with the win, so maybe not. But that to me, I was like, I looked over to colleague John Still, and I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a game, right?
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, the Canadiens had a prolonged offensive zone possession where they started off with the Danault line. And I found this to me was some of the best work I've seen of Arbor Jacki this season, where he was really strong and helping to be aggressive in the offensive zone, keep the puck in the net, pinch when needed, helping to keep the play alive. And, I talked to Arbor about that, and he concluded he felt like that was some of the strongest offensive work he's done. They were then able to do a change where they brought out the Suzuki line without losing possession, ultimately resulting in a point shot, unfortunately. But to me, that's where the game turned around for the Canadiens, and they were really kind of able to keep things going and attack the play aggressively. As the game went on, you kind of saw it. The Canadiens were slowly starting to take over. And then unfortunately, that 5-on-3, it's unfortunate, especially the Mike Matheson high stick. To lose Mike Matheson in a 5-on-3 is very difficult. And I'd like to get onto that 5-on-3 in a bit. But I think at the end of the day, you can't be taking penalties like that, especially with the goalie situation. You don't want to make it worse for them. Unfortunately, they did. And, that 5-on-3, as I said, that 5-on-3 was a turning point for the game for me.
Well, that's it. And, one of the most penalized team in hockey. And again, it seems like, the Canadiens made a few mistakes, and the mistakes that they did make, they ended up paying a pretty significant consequence when Matthew Schaefer decided, well, I'm just going to take the game over with my dad and my brother watching from the Bell Center. The kid was amplified to play that game, and he put on a show. I want to talk about the season he's having. Is the Rookie of the Year race even a race, or is he already crossed the finish line? And also to that end, as the show unravels today, the Montreal Canadiens are going in the complete wrong direction when it comes to playing with the lead, when it comes to 6-on-5 defending. The numbers that are out there from the Natural Stat Trick and Arpin Basu's piece in The Athletic, I want to talk about that and the reasons behind. They've done a 180 when 6-on-5 in the opposing goaltender. So stay tuned. We're going to dive into those numbers. We'll pick Marco's brains on the reasons why. But of course, if you're here watching us live, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe to the channel as the march to 20,000 subscribers begins with each and every single one of you. So thanks so much for being with us on this Friday. But was that it, brother? Was that where the 2-0 lead and Slafkovsky takes that penalty? Was that the beginning of where it kind of went wrong for the Canadiens and allowed the Islanders back in?
I think this game was played in stages, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yes, the Islanders tied it, but once they tied it, I felt like there was a good amount of pushback from the Canadiens in that regard. We're able to reclaim the lead themselves on the power play. For once, a broken stick works in the favor of the Montreal Canadiens. But I think when you look at that 5-on-3, those two Matthew Schaefer shots were savable.
I agree.
That's my problem.
The first one especially,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I know that, colleague Mitch Gallo adamantly saying, that this loss was not on Montembeault. Look, I've spoken to a couple of folks that watched that game, and I don't like hammering on a player who is trying to find his game. But there are two instances for me that I found were just not going to work. And that was a clear, screened shot on a 5-on-3 from the top of the circle from Matthew Schaefer. I'm sorry, that's savable. And anybody who goes and watches that replay, you see that Samuel Montembeault doesn't do the proper technique when it comes to being able to stop that puck. He pulled his arm, his I believe in this case I'm looking at the left arm, a little too tightly, and the puck goes right under his arm to score. You have to be a little bit, especially on a 5-on-3 from that angle, you have to be square to the shot. And I didn't feel like he was. And then in overtime, with Pageau coming down, I feel like he was over aggressive in his movement, which opened up the 5-hole for Pageau to just slip in the backhand right there. Because other than that, he didn't really have an angle. He had Slafkovsky right on him. So you could withstand the half a second to push off, to be in proper position. Your glove is right there. So if you're forcing on the player, he can't go back to his forehand because Slafkovsky's right behind him. So you have him to the outside. Unfortunately, Pageau took advantage of that overextension, and that's why they lost. So again, we're not going to blame the goalie in the sense that the Canadiens could have had this game sealed if they played better defensively and they were more disciplined. But at the same time, you're in the last stretch of the season. You need your goalies to make the big save. And I don't think Ilya Sorokin had any of a better game.
Agreed.
I really don't. So if we're comparing apples to apples, I don't think this was a goalie game. But I have to say, when it comes to Montembeault, we said this before and we say it again. I think Jakub Dobson needs to be allowed a little bit more runway here. I understand trying to get the veteran going and going back to the veteran, but this is going to start causing the Canadiens to lose games, important games, and we cannot see a repeat of how Samuel Montembeault played down the stretch in the Four Nations, because it wasn't pretty then either. I think at some point Jakub Dobson is going to have to be given a little bit more rope, because it's not pretty with Jakub Dobson, but he gets the W's.
He does. And the Canadiens are on a 6-game point streak. They're on 73 points. It was a bad night for them on the out-of-town scoreboard. The Red Wings win in overtime. Dylan Larkin had himself a game, scored twice, including the game winner. Boston wins. Toronto went through Florida and got absolutely clobbered. They were out of that game after 20 minutes, losing big to the Florida Panthers yesterday. So the Florida Panthers are winning. The Red Wings are winning. The Bruins are winning. Buffalo's playing pretty consistent hockey. But at the end of the day, I mean, I guess we just have to start with Sam Montembeault and expand on that, right? Because, he's taken a beating in the chat. As this commentator points out, what's the coach's logic for giving Monty the first start since the break, right? And for me, I'm not, you can do what you do. I'm not going to pick on and pound on Sam Montembeault. To be honest with you, I'm just used to it. I'm used to him not making timely stops on the regular. I'm used to watching Sam Montembeault have pucks that go through him. I'm just used to it. I've seen it all season. I saw it again last night. But the reason, Marco, I guess I'm not to catch on the buzz phrase, the buzzword again. I'm not going cuckoo bananas over Sam Montembeault yesterday because, brother, the coach said both guys are getting starts this week. So he goes to Sam Montembeault. He's going to go to Dobson on Saturday. And I think for me, after Saturday at least, I think then we can start again. Your point's well made. Dobson wins. He wins. He battles. And to me, he's better at making the timely stop. But can we not wait till after Saturday to see how Dobson does? Like, before the coach knows, man. Like, he sat Zach Bolduc. Like, they're prioritizing winning here. And they got after last night, they have 24 games in like 46 days. Dobson isn't going to play every night.
I don't think he's going to play every night. There you have 6 back-to-back instances between now and the end of the season.
That's right.
So already, those are 12 games that are going to be split between 2 goalies. So then you have the other now 12 that you have to work through that probably are also going to be evenly split between the goalies. So this is the way that I kind of look at it. Dobson starts Saturday. If Dobson wins Saturday, Dobson wins the next game. And I will once again, because I really don't want to come off as arrogant, ladies and gentlemen. I do appreciate all of your input. But if I see another DEI because he's French comment, I'm going to absolutely effing lose it.
It's a weak take, Marco. At the end of the day, it's just a weak, not well thought out take. Everyone has their opinion. Express your opinion, but you're prepared to have Marco or my opinion based on your take.
If the Canadiens gave a hoot about the amount of French Canadians they had in their lineup, they wouldn't be scratching Bolduc. Like, it's as simple as that. And I got to be honest with you. If this were a game 7 and the Canadiens goaltenders weren't giving them what they wanted, I wouldn't even be surprised. Wouldn't even be surprised if Jacob Fowler was the goalie to start that game 7.
Yeah.
So I don't think it has anything to do with that. Wow. I think it has more to do.
Yeah.
I think it has more to do with the fact that the Canadiens are going with the veteran, the player that has proven the most over a longer period of time, a larger sample size. Now, that being said, I think we have enough of a sample size this season to know that it's about time that we look into maybe giving Dobson more of a leash. And I think that's totally fine. And I hope that if he does play a strong game on Saturday, that they go with something like that, where they go with pushing the goalie that is most performant into the starter's role with more regularity.
You brought up the defensive structure, right? And I kind of saw what you saw. So let's get into this, right? Yesterday's game was the 20th time the Canadiens have gone to overtime. Half of those games came after they blew a lead in the third period. Of those 10 blown leads in overtime, 5 have come in their last 17. This from Arpon Basu in The Athletic. And when you go down even further to break it down, last season, as Arpon writes about, the team played 55 minutes and 17 seconds with the opposing goaltender pulled. The Canadiens allowed 4 goals and scored 15. This year, with 46 minutes and 55 seconds with the goalie pulled, Montreal has allowed 10 goals and scored 9. Them and Vancouver, those are the only 2 teams in the NHL to have allowed more goals than they've scored with the other goaltender pulled. What do we make of that? Is that as simple, Marco, as like they don't have Dvorak and Armia and David Savard? They're missing the veteran presence. They're missing those guys in PK shorthanded situations. What do we make of the Canadiens going 180 degrees removed from the team that we saw last year and covered with the goalie pulled versus this one?
I'll go one step further. Go back and look at Matthew Schaefer's goal on the 5-on-3.
Yeah.
Look at where Jake Evans was on that 5-on-3. All right. He tries to commit to the guy that's at the point, right? And isn't able to get his stick in the lane. So the puck goes across, which gets Jake Evans completely out of the play. He comes back to the high circle and now has to try to find where to go. It opens up a shooting lane. Matthew Schaefer comes in and shoots, scores. That did not happen with Christian Dvorak, primarily because Christian Dvorak knew his limitations and wouldn't overskate in a 5-on-3. And I think we're starting to get to a point where you bring it full front. And I think we're starting to I'm at the point where I understand where Martin St. Louis is trying to give other players minutes, but on a 5-on-3, you can't be that aggressive along the boards. You cannot allow your center, the one that's going to cover the high circles, to be out there, right? And I feel like on the 5-on-3, the defenseman played it properly, but Jake Evans and Samuel Montembeault both blew that coverage. It was really unfortunate because I thought they were playing it fantastically prior to that. And then you look at, the tying goal, the tying goal in the third period. Like, yes, It was deflection. What can Montembeault do with that? For sure. But again, Nick Suzuki was not in the middle of the slot. Like, you're the center. It's a 6-on-5. You have to cover the high slot. And that has been the problem for the Canadiens for a long little while. Like, I get it's a 6-on-5. You can't play man-to-man on 6-on-5, which, again, you want to have the argument about zone defense, man-on-man defense. That is what comes into it. But above all, when it comes to both structures, covering the middle of the ice is important. Look at how Team USA played Canada in the finals of the Olympics. It was virtually impossible to get a guy in the slot. Virtually impossible. They boxed you out entirely. And obviously you're dealing with much better defensemen, but you can't, that's what seems to kill the Montreal Canadiens every single time, is that they get spread, it goes back to the middle, and then they get a high danger chance against, and they score. They get scored on. And I think that is what needs to be cleared up. So unfortunately, it's a situational thing, but for me, it comes back down to it. When you need to save or help your goalie, collapsing into the slot is one of the safest things you can do. And it's what most playoff teams, once you get into the playoffs, end up doing. Keep them to the periphery. Who cares? But you have to cover the high danger area.
Oh, didn't it begin with Suzuki's decision to keep pressure and try to build on the lead when he tries to feed it over? And there was Andre Palat on Cole Caufield, and the puck goes the other way, and Anders Lee's able to make it happen. Like, some of that's what I meant earlier. Like, some of the decisions that have been made, or the mistakes that were made in the game, on one night anyway, just consistently came back to hurt the Canadiens. Just a bad decision by the captain. We talk about the Slafkovsky penalty, the high sticking on Mike Matheson. It's a 5-on-3. Matthew Schaefer takes the game over. And then the lack of net front coverage, which, for regular viewers, right? We talk about trade deadline, and we talk about, the wants and needs of the Canadiens. There are a few things there for me, I want to talk about Ivan Demidov, and maybe I'm guilty of expectations, with Matthew Schaefer and Demidov in a mano-a-mano rookie of the year kind of showdown. I was hoping for a little bit more, and one guy clearly won the one-on-one battle yesterday. And the other thing to me was, again, the need with Demidov so young, the need for a better two-way center to fill in at the 2C role just to get this started. But the one thing, Marco, and speaking for myself, that I've talked about for a long time, is I'm not so good with the context or the texture of the Canadiens defensemen. I know Hudson and Dobson are putting up fantastic numbers together. And Arbor Jacki had a great first period. He threw his weight around, was very noticeable in the offensive zone on a couple of different occasions, played almost 12 minutes. Nice to see 72 get rewarded with more minutes. But to me, it's still a need, Marco. What about that on the defensive side? What do you want to see this group do a better job of?
I mean, we talked about it just before, but you need to play stronger in front of Montembeault or Dovesh or whoever it is that's there. They need to play stronger in front. They need crease clearing ability. You look at that goal, that tying goal, and both defensemen were in front of the Islanders forwards. So puck goes off the boards and comes back. The Islanders forwards are the first ones there.
Yeah.
There's a deflection. Islanders forwards are the last man back to be able to deflect. So there's no way of tying up the stick. You have to be on top of the guy, not in front of the guy. And I think that they've done it before. They've seemed to be doing it before. They need to do it with more consistency. And I think that's where I kind of have my issue. Like Lane Hudson is really excellent in doing that. He knows his limitations from a size perspective. So where does he plant himself? Right next to the stick of the of the opponent, so that he can stick lift, he could tie him up, he could get in the way, good anticipation. Like that's how you're supposed to defend. You're not supposed to, be ahead of them like that. And I think that to me was the biggest thing. And the forwards, again, the moment a team starts playing a cycle game at the point, that's the moment the Canadiens' coverage situation becomes complicated. And you've noticed it. You go back and look at it last night, a couple of plays like that. It's caused a lot of confusion. Players are pointing at each other like, you go get that guy, I'm going to go get this guy. And then all of a sudden the cycle game goes down low, comes back up top, and it's discombobulation again. So it's unfortunate. It's something that's going to have to get cleaned up. Part of it could be a strategy tweak. Part of it has to be a little bit more consistency from the players and a little bit more aggressiveness when it comes to being where they need to be in the moment.
Let's dig in on Matthew Schaefer, the 18-year-old phenom. I mean, the race is over, right? I mean, he's your rookie of the year.
Why did Lane Hudson win last year? Because he made history, right?
Yes.
I shouldn't even be problem quoting. I apologize. He made history.
He made history, yeah.
He made history, right?
And now what Matthew Schaefer is projected for 25 goals as he'll move past the great Brian Leach and his 23-goal season set all the way back in 1989. And I was reminded today of that 89 season where Mario Lemieux put up 199 points.
I wasn't born.
I mean, 190. He scored 85 goals and he put up 199 points. I mean, the eras are obviously different. It's harder to score goals in the National Hockey League today than it was in 1989. But in context of, we were going through it. Like, think about the defensemen. There's Hanky, the defensemen that have gone first overall. I mean, this guy is I know we throw the word unicorn around, but he is. You look up the definition of NHL unicorn. I mean, is he not the poster boy?
I think the only defenseman in the modern era of hockey to come in at 18 years old and play even close to him is Rasmus Dahlin.
Dahlin, eh? Yeah, it's not Owen Power. It's not Aaron Ekblad. It's
if I'm not, Owen Power didn't play his 18-year-old season.
Oh, he didn't? No, I thought he did. Okay.
Pretty sure he went back to Michigan. But I think that was COVID related, to be completely honest with you. But
right.
I think when you look at the way that Schaefer plays, the Islanders would be a lottery team without Matthew Schaefer.
Yeah. Eh?
The entire offense of the back end goes through him. The entire
Patrick kept putting him out there. It's like nonstop.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing, and he's a player that I thought was going to maybe hit a wall in January. And I think the break is probably something that did him wonders, the Olympic break, because he doesn't have to hit that wall anymore. You have to, he continues to evolve. But the shooting mechanics, the skating, the hockey IQ are all elite. And I think that makes him such a dangerous player. And consider this. He's still going to be 18 years old when training camp opens next season.
Right.
That's nuts.
It is nuts. It is. Yeah.
Nuts. Cuckoo bananas. Okay?
Thank you. Trademark.
That is the proper use of cuckoo bananas. But I think with Schaefer, there's so much more room to grow that I'm of the mind that in a year or two from now, we're going to be talking about Schaefer versus Makar.
In that conversation, I guess in hindsight, we look back on it, and it is what it is. Monday morning quarterback, fine. But if you had to do it again, you'd take Schaefer over Doughty for Team Canada, right? If I asked you, you get to do it all over again. You don't know, you can't, you're just not going to say Canada's going to win gold.
I take Schaefer over Thomas Harley. I take Schaefer over Drew Doughty. And this isn't, the receipts exist. I've said this before. I would have taken them before the tournament.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason why they didn't go with him, look, I don't understand how you can go with Macklin Celebrini, but not have gone with Matthew Schaefer. Because clearly you've shown an openness for a player that's doing some ridiculous, absolutely historic stuff on Celebrini's side.
So expand that, because that was my next question. Expand on that. Like, what's the logic? What do you think it is?
Well, experience. It's the same reason why Samuel Montembeault is the starting goalie in the first game back from the playoffs, right? Or from the Olympics. It's classic. You go with what you know. You go with sample size. And I think, unfortunately, that's what makes it so that you have these young players that maybe should have been there, maybe lack the experience. But if you removed the biometrics on their stat sheet and you went with the pure numbers of who was probably the best player to play in those situations, Matthew Schaefer would have been the third left D behind Josh Morrissey. Second left D behind Josh Morrissey for me. That would have been my call. But again, I don't make those calls, and it's easy for me to talk about this now. But it goes down to the same thing. It's a classic coaching strategy that you go with the veterans, you go with experience. Experience is the one skill that cannot be developed any faster than time itself. Right. And I think that's something that we sometimes take for granted. But I think in this case, you had enough experience. You could have allowed a player like Schaefer in, especially in the case of injury, because then you have someone to come in the case that Josh Morrissey gets injured, right? The Canadian Team Canada had that same problem last year when Cale Makar was injured, and I thought that perhaps they would bring in a guy that was a little bit more well-rounded. Like I think Schaefer's having a better season than Thomas Harley, with respect to Thomas Harley. I think he's having a better season than Shea Theodore, with respect to Shea Theodore. I think Drew Doughty was there because he's a right shot defenseman and he's the elder statesman and he's got that experience. I can make the same claim about Brad Marchand there over Connor Bedard, right? Like you can make these coulda, shoulda, woulda, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. He'll be a figurehead for them at the 2028 World Cup and the 2030 Olympics.
Let me put this comment. I want to clear this up here. JFed4942 telling one of our commentators to Google it. The reference point being there. Stop comparing Juraj Slafkovsky to Jaromir Jagr. Let's clear the air there. Jaromir Jagr made some news this week in the Montreal market because he talked about watching Juraj Slafkovsky play, and it was Jaromir Jagr who said of Juraj that he reminds him of him with his ability to battle along the boards. And the rest of some of his game in terms of puck protection. You remember Jaromir Jagr, if you ever a certain age, that gigantic tuchus of his and how great he was at protecting the puck and being an all-time great in the National Hockey League. No one's looking at Juraj Slafkovsky and expecting a 140-point season in the National Hockey League. I don't think that's a hot take. So no one's comparing him man to man. It was Jagr admiring some of the skill set and what he saw from Slafkovsky during the Olympics. So let's clear the air on that before people get a little nasty unnecessarily.
I don't know if it's the new dad energy in me, but y'all need love in your life. Like, chill out. They just asked Jaromir Jagr about Slafkovsky because of what was going on at the Olympics. Yes. And the poor man gave his opinion. And is he the first person to compare himself and Slafkovsky in terms of style, build, etc.? No. What's with the hate? Chill, everybody. Chill. It's have a glass of water.
Listen, I get it.
All I'm going to say is this: Slafkovsky is not Jaromir Jagr. He is not. Okay.
Yeah.
He is not. He is the same mold, right? And that is what everybody is saying. Will he be Jaromir Jagr? Of course not. Of course not. But in today's NHL, that the player that was Jaromir Jagr is extremely rare. You're never going to see a player like Jaromir Jagr.
He's an all-time great player.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you had to look across the league and say what young player in this league looks like the kind of player that Jaromir Jagr played stylistically in the NHL, and I think a lot of people, especially after just having watched the Olympics, are going to say Slafkovsky, and that's fine. That's fine. But let's all bring it down.
Yes.
He did nothing wrong. Jagr did nothing wrong. He gave his flowers, and he used his platform to elevate Slafkovsky. That take class.
100%.
He wasn't looking for attention. They went to him and asked him a question.
And he's not even Slovakian. He's a guy that played for
Czech.
He's Czech.
Exactly.
It's not like me, the big Hab fan, saying Cole Caufield's goal should have counted. They're not. It's not the same thing. But let me bring it back to the Canadiens in the standings for a second. They're in third in the Atlantic Division. As I mentioned earlier, bad night on the out-of-town scoreboard. The Bruins are hot in their heels. The Sabres are hot in their heels. The Red Wings have one more point now than Montreal, right? But also on the other end, when you look at the Washington Capitals, the bubble team, the 9th place team in the Eastern Conference, the difference between Washington and Montreal, brother, is 6 points. Mm-hmm. Now, let me tie in the forward combination. Slafkovsky did not have a great game last night. He did not have a Jaromir Jagr dominant performance on the ice in the 4-3 overtime loss. Okay. Do you think we're going to come to, if the Canadiens, who are on a 6-game point streak, I guess I'm trying to figure out the right question to talk about the forward line combinations. How much longer does Kirby Dach stay on the top line? Are there other options that the Canadiens can explore in-house?
I mean,
does Slav go back there? Does Demidov get a look up there? I mean,
we'll see how long they want to go with the kid line. I wouldn't personally break it up just yet. When defending a lead, the Montreal Canadiens put Slafkovsky back on the top line regularly. We've seen it before. They did it again. So not really, not really that big of a deal. And, at the end of the day, they want depth across their lineup. I don't know that putting Demidov with the top line right now necessarily works with the way that they play. They insist on playing that cycle game, so they need a guy that is able to possess the puck, that is strong on the forecheck. Although that is an aspect of Demidov's game that he's done much, 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 much better since the start of the season. Where I would go though, and where I think maybe we see the swap, is eventually you swap, you put Texier back on that top line, because one of the things I liked about Texier's game was he was effective in the forecheck. He was effective in puck recuperation, and he was stronger in puck protection. I'm not to say that Kirby Dach had a bad game. I don't think he had a bad game at all. But I think especially the top line, you need more. You need a little bit more juice from them than what we saw last night, for sure.
I did not think you were going to go there. Honestly, if I tried to read your mind, because I was going to, now I'll bring it to the table because you didn't give me the answer I thought you were going to give me. I thought maybe Slav as an option. We're talking about options, in-house options, right? Slav goes back up to the top line. Alex Newhook slides there with Kapanen and Demidov, and Kirby Dach finds a new home. I mean, I like Alex Newhook. Didn't look like a guy who played his first game out for fractured ankle yesterday. The speed burst was definitely part of his game again.
Yeah. We I had a pretty long chat with Alex yesterday, and Newhook was feeling it, and being on the power play, he was able to get some things going. I don't even disagree with that take that they reunite the original second line before Slav was put down there with Newhook. I think that ends up happening if the Canadiens down the stretch feel like they need a little bit more support from a speed perspective on the second line, and a little bit more punch on the first line. Like, I could see that happening. They have the options. That's the whole point of having depth throughout their lineup. Where I would venture to say is I think I'm done trying to guess what Martin St. Louis is going to do.
Okay.
Because again, when it comes to lineup decisions, I'm not exactly sure in some situations why they would necessarily look to go one way or the other with players. I try to put myself in the mindset of, okay, well, what's the benefit? What can you do? Yeah. And when it comes to Kirby Dach, like I said, he's a puck possession player. So I don't necessarily mind seeing him on the top line, because he has a skill that Caufield and Suzuki don't have, which is the reach, the size, and the puck protection ability. I think we just need to see more of it. And again, we're going to extrapolate now because it's the first game and we're going to talk about it. But again, I need to see sample size back from a break before I say this needs to happen, that needs to happen.
Agreed. Yeah, I apply that logic to the goaltending position anyway. Hey, do you want to go see the Montreal Canadiens play the Boston Bruins? 2 tickets, March 17th. Do you want? Well, you're going to be there. Don't worry. No one's worried about Marco. How about luxury transportation to the game and then back from the game? And how about $200 to spend at one of our sponsors, Morella's Steakhouse? We love all of our sponsors. That's why we partner with the best in the business. You can trust them because we do. But we've got a VIP giveaway, and we will do the draw March 12th. So it's $200 at Morella's. It's luxury transportation to and from the game and 2 tickets to go see the Habs and Bruins with great seats, by the way. All you need to do, and it's worth downloading the Instagram app if you don't have it. You got to go to Instagram. You got to go to Morella's Steakhouse page. You're going to see it's their #1 pinned post on their profile. You just enter the contest, and we will do the draw March 12th. But you got to go to their Instagram page for a chance to get in on this unbelievable. And we thank Morella so much for doing this. And we thank you for being with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe as the march to 20,000 subscribers begins with each and every single one of you. Let me put this comment on the board here. I want Marco, your reaction. Ivan Demidov needs to wake up. If he wants to be labeled as a generational, because he is, but he hasn't shown that spark lately. Maybe Slav took the spotlight, but still, he needs to do more for his caliber of player. As Marco has left the room, slammed the door.
He is not generational. Here. Stop that nonsense now. He's not generational. No one's ever pegged him as generational, and whoever has probably didn't watch him much. He's not a generational player. He's going to be a superstar. Generational? Man, I don't even know if Celebrini is generational.
I was going to ask you, like, Connor McDavid's generational.
Yes.
Right?
Generational. I think we use that room way too loosely. We really like that
Cale
word.
McCarr, generational.
Is generational. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, like with respect, he's not generational. He's a rookie playing in the NHL, playing in his first season in North America. Like, generational player went 4th overall in Cale McCarr, so I wouldn't just laugh about that just yet. And Kucherov, I think, is like right there in terms of having that conversation, and he went in like the 2nd round. So it doesn't matter where you're drafted. I think Celebrini is the closest thing right now in terms of career projection that we can get to this era's generational.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people assumed it was Connor Bedard. There's still room. Things happen. But I think Celebrini is the closest player in this league right now on the path to generational. Maybe Bedard after that in terms of forwards. Demidov is not there. And I think that may be the problem in terms of the expectation. The man is on pace for 65 points as a rookie in the NHL, playing an average of about 14 to 15 minutes a game. I agree that I wanted to see more of him. I agree.
Yeah.
And the way that Matthew Schaefer is playing, he may be the next defenseman in terms of potential generational play. But like we need to pump the brakes when it comes to Hudson. Hudson doesn't even play on the PK.
No, he's not. No.
Hudson is going to be cream of the
superstar
crop.
Potential.
Yeah. Superstar.
Yes.
Potential Norris winner.
Yeah.
Right? But perennial Norris winner?
Yeah.
And I think Celebrini is the one, in my opinion, that I would label as a generational forward in the making.
Austin Matthews? Austin Matthews?
Now, you see, that's the beauty about being generational. You have to be you have to do something generational for the length of your career.
Yeah.
And I don't think Austin Matthews has done that. And one thing that I think really kind of gets me is how loose we use the word generational. Like, we were extremely lucky in the post lockout, 05 lockout, where where the NHL had 2 generational players starting right at the same time.
Exactly.
Because I think Ovechkin is a generational player.
Agreed.
You don't break the goal scoring record and not be considered
Crosby.
generational.
I mean, come on.
And then Crosby's generational.
Yes.
Right. And I think it took about 10 years after that to find someone else who was truly generational, and that was Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
You know, I think without Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews is going to have a significant amount of time keeping up with what he was before. I don't think he's ever going to hit 70 or get close to 70 goals again. Right. I don't think that's going to happen without a player like Mitch Marner on the team. And, you know, as he gets older, you know, the injuries will stack up. No, Żurawski will not be better than Demidov. As someone who watches Żurawski's games, not the well, if sorry, hold on a sec. If Alexander Ovechkin broke the goal scoring record in the NHL, how in the flute is he not a generational player?
Dude, he's the greatest goal scorer in the history of the National Hockey League, and he was before he broke the record.
That is generational.
Generational.
That is generational.
There is, Marco, there is zero debate.
When you break a scoring record that was held by a generational player, you are generational. You have surpassed.
Yes.
And
like
so
he was the greatest goal scorer before he broke the record. And then he broke the record.
If he didn't have 2 lockouts and COVID to deal with, he would have broken it years ago.
100%. 100%. Can we dig in on what's going on? Can we speculate on some trade activity? You know, we did a video yesterday.
Say it again. Say this again.
Not by us. Like and subscribe to the channel. We continue to grow, and we thank you for your support. What about what's going on as we get towards, Marco, when we do our live on Sunday morning? It's going to be March, and we're that much closer to the 6th. Can we start with Patrik Laine? What are you hearing there? I mean, lots of speculation around this guy that the Canadiens are aggressively trying to move him. Teams are looking. I mean, what's the latest? Talk to us about Patrik Laine. What's going on now?
I mean, the Canadiens are trying to move him. I don't think that's that's not news to anybody. His agent is now involved in the trade conversations as well, trying to see if he can find a fit for his client. We've seen this before, like Dan Milstein, who is the agent for Evander Kane, is also doing the same thing for him. I've spoken about this at length, but I think Patrik Laine is the kind of player that's going to be moved once a lot of the shiny toys are removed from the top of the trade board. I think that's when teams are going to circle back. When they've done their shopping, they realize they have a little bit more cap room available, and that's where a Patrik Laine may become, you know, attractive, especially for teams that have, you know, difficulty scoring on the power play, let's say.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at right now. It's a very, like I've said it from the very beginning, I don't think Patrik Laine plays another game as a Montreal Canadien. That's right. That's where I've sat. And so I think that's where they're going to be. Now, there's trading Patrik Laine, and then there's improving this team. And I think I've said this before, and, you know, the number one thing that the Canadiens would like is to add a player to play with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield on a regular basis, or at least complete the top 6. That's a really nice to have that they have no problem kicking the can down the line and looking into in the summer. I feel like right now they're, and this is from what I've heard, they're looking for a little bit more sandpaper, either in the bottom 6 or on the third pair of their defense. And I mean, like crease clearing, defensive-minded defensemen that are able to help, or guys that are able to play with a little bit more edge on the bottom 6. I think that is exactly what they're looking for right now. And obviously, they're not going to go big game. I don't think they're going to go big game hunting. It's what I've heard. I don't think that they're going to throw picks at players, especially on the wrong side of 30, that would be able to fill that role. But from what I'm hearing, you know, it's always been forward. But there is an opportunity here for them to try and upgrade the third pair on the defense to be a little bit more physical, because as we saw last night, trying to hold down a lead seems to be difficult. Bringing in a stabilizer on that defense could be exactly what the doctor ordered, especially if the cost is not astronomical.
That's good. And what about teams in and around the Montreal Canadiens? I mean, before we get to, you know, the Red Wings, or are they in on Tyler Myers, asset protection with the Vancouver Canucks, who are tearing it down here? When it comes to Ken Hughes, I mean, is there a sense, can we use the word aggressive, or are they just merely curious and seeing how the market kind of plays out in the days leading up to March 6th?
I think everyone's really curious right now across the league. I mean, Detroit is in on Tyler Myers. The issue with Tyler Myers is he has a full no trade clause. Full cannot be traded, right? Cannot be moved without his consent. Doesn't want to move. And then this summer, his full no trade becomes a 12-team no trade. So that he's not moved now, he'll probably get moved in the summer, one way or the other. It's very clear that Vancouver is willing to move him for the right price. Detroit, as we've talked about, is looking to make some splashes here this summer. So I think that's where things get a little bit trickier with that in that regard. I know a lot of teams have checked in on Rasmus Ristolainen. I know that the Canadiens obviously have looked into that as well, just trying to see, what that kind of looks like. Again, to me, I think Ristolainen is the type of profile that they would be looking for, but at the same time, there's cost involved. There's years on his deal. He's getting up there in age. Again, like I see the Canadiens coming when it comes to for experience and whatnot, but seeing how other teams are trying to improve, like Detroit's trying to improve drastically right now, Boston's trying to improve significantly as well. I just don't see the need for them to try to keep up with everybody else. Like, build your team. And I feel like if you're going to be looking to trade for any of these veterans, especially a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen, for example, what's the opportunity cost here? Because I don't know how you get a Rasmus Ristolainen. First of all, you'd have to send them Patrick Laine the other way. And then you'd have to compensate them with probably a first-round pick and then some. Is that really what you want to do? And that's where I think the Canadiens, you look at a guy like Ristolainen, unless the price comes down drastically or it's a very easy fit, I don't know that they would do that. I think there are teams that are a little bit more aggressive right now and trying to get right shot defensemen that are contending that are looking at them. I think the Canadiens, it makes more sense for them to go for like a Luke Schenn or a Zach Whitecloud, for example. Those kinds of characters that you can slot in on your third pair. I would be really, I'm not saying it's impossible because the Canadiens have pulled rabbits out of their hats before, but given the market and given how many teams are looking for right shot D, because like Boston's looking for right shot D, Detroit is looking for right shot D, Dallas is looking for right shot D, Anaheim has been interested in trying to get a right shot defenseman. So there are a lot of defensemen that could fit that mold. And to me, the trade market right now is just so convoluted and open that what's going to end up happening is one player is going to go and it's caused them all to go crazy and go into a frenzy.
So let's talk about that for a second, because that's the next direction I wanted to talk about or take you into was Nashville wins again. They're 2 points out. They're looking up at Seattle, 2 points back in the Western Conference, right? Lots of talk. Steven Stamkos scored an empty netter. He's putting up a season. Ryan O'Reilly says if you move him, he wants to go to a quiet market, preferably. Blake Coleman wants to stay in the West. We go to Calgary. I mean, Vincent Trocheck, Nazem Kadri. Like, who's the domino that falls that sets the market and now teams can start to move because that one player has been moved? Is there a market-setting player?
At forward, I think it's going to be Vinny Trocheck. I think Vinny Trocheck is the kind of player that I think is going to move. I know he's not the sexiest name, but at this point of the season, there are other names out there. Of course, Robert Thomas is probably the best asset out there. Elias Pettersson, there are teams interested: Detroit, LA, Carolina, even Minnesota's checked in on him. So there is that. And I think once Trocheck goes, I think you're going to see a flurry of deals come down the pipe. And you look at why some of these teams are waiting is because everyone's trying to see who's going to make the first move, right? And I think that's kind of the problem. You look at the Kulak trade, for example, that was done quickly because Colorado wanted to clear cap space to add at forward. So that's why that happened earlier than not. But what you're going to see over the next week is hockey trades. And a lot of teams are looking to make trades right now in that regard, like players with term, because there are no big name rental players. Panarin was the last one.
Yep.
After that, it's more periphery guys.
LA.
So, and the fact that there's a lot of teams, yeah. And the fact that there's a lot of teams right now that haven't decided what direction they're going to take. You look at, the Columbus Blue Jackets, for example, Seattle Kraken still have to make decisions. That slows everything down. And I think ultimately it'll, Fridays are generally the days where trades go down. Saturdays are days where trades go down. I think the next 2 to 3 days, we may see the market shake. And I think at that point, you see what you can do in terms of the Canadiens, but I don't see them going big game hunting. Like, especially if it's a Ristolainen thing.
Yeah.
If Ristolainen costs a first, the Canadiens would have to be really down on this draft year to give up a first like that right off the bat. I think it would have to be prospect related that they would look into, and then from there they would go. But
I'm not a fan of the first for Ristolainen if it's kind of the conversation starts there.
And I'm of the same ilk. Like, he's had a good season this year.
Yeah.
Okay-ish season this year, but like his body of work over the last 3 or 4 seasons, like if it costs you more than that, I would be a little concerned.
Well, that's it too. And like this comment from XL Habs wants to know from Marco for fun, the Robert Thomas. I had an opportunity to speak with Darren Dreger on TSN 690. And we spoke about, I think it was Nick Kiprios put it out there, that Thomas and Kyrou would be willing to move their no trades if the Blues are going to find a proper partner to make some sort of deal, right? And my understanding was that the Canadiens and the Blues have had conversations, and apparently the ask for Robert Thomas was so out of this world expensive, the conversation was not a very long one. And that's about as far as it went. So with that said, why don't you answer XL Habs' question for fun? What's it going to take to get Robert Thomas?
I don't think people what would you trade Nick Suzuki for? Because prior to this season, they were on the exact same plane, right? Same point trajectory. Just St. Louis is terrible this season.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the way that you look at a guy like him, you're Montreal, they're obviously going to ask you for Hage. They're obviously going to ask you for a prime defenseman, be it one already in your lineup like Gooley or one that's coming up like Reinbacher. Your first has to be involved, and that's the nucleus.
Yeah.
And then some, right?
Yeah.
That's what it would take. I don't think the Canadiens are feeling like they need to do that. Again, I don't think the Canadiens feel like they need to go balls to the wall like Steve Yzerman has to in Detroit.
Agreed.
Right? This is why I keep saying this. This is the time of desperation and overpay. Does that sound like Kent Hughes to you? No. So unless it's a deal, I'm not quite sure that makes sense for them to go after these. Even Ristolainen, I just got a text message where it was the Canadiens inquired about Rasmus Ristolainen. But an inquiry means a certain level of interest. It doesn't necessarily indicate that they're going to go hard after a player. You have to factor in he's making $5.1 million. He signed for another season next year, and thankfully no trade protection. So Philly is going to be able to move around here. But I think what constantly kind of gets undermined or is kind of forgotten is you bring him in for a season, you pay for that this season and the next, right? I understand that. But then what if a better player becomes available in the summer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What if, you get top end, this is where I feel like the Canadians need to play this very safely. Like, yes, Ristolainen is that big, rugged, physical defenseman that could push guys out of the way and be that kind of player, but he's also prone to many defensive mistakes that a lot of people vilify Mike Matheson for making. And I get what he could bring on the right side, and he looks like he could be the kind of a good match, for example, for playing with Mike Matheson, and you put Hudson with Noah Dobson on a regular basis, and that's your top four. And then you have Gooley with Carey on your third pair and, go off to the races. I understand that vision, and I could see why it would buy David Reinbacher more time, but is now really where you're at, where you want to make that kind of play for a player right now who, is, let's say it, he's born in 1994, so he's 31 right now. He'll be 32 in October when the season starts up again. It's not a bad age. It's a good age to be in, but you don't have that cost control and you don't have that long of a runway with a player like that. Unless the price is too good to pass up, which I doubt considering the amount of interest that there is. 7 teams checked in on him, including the Canadiens. I just don't know if the price is worth the outcome considering where the Canadiens are. Now, getting cheaper help, I am 100% on board. A White Cloud, a Luke Shen, Perbix is a player that I like as well, though I don't think Nashville is going to move. Those are the kinds of players that I can consider. Unless the Montreal Canadiens trade out a piece on their defense right now to allow them to incorporate Ristolainen, I don't see how that would work.
Yeah. This comment here quickly, Gooley not looking great. I wonder if the coaching is in this guy's head somewhere. I'd like to see him be a little bit more physical. Not looking great.
He had a really good hit last night. I thought he played the more physical game since coming back from injury.
This one here, Hage in a Habs jersey this year or next, and where?
April 11th is the latest he can play in the NCAA. It's the end of the Frozen Four tournament.
Yeah.
And then at that point, he would be free to sign with the Canadiens. The Canadiens play the 14th and 16th, if I'm not mistaken, of April. Yeah. Their last game's against Philadelphia. Actually, I have an article coming out tomorrow with his Team Canada teammate, on Sunday. His Team Canada teammate, Porter Martone. There's potential for both Hage and Martone to make their NHL debuts against each other in the last game of the season when Philly plays Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, he would be eligible for the playoffs.
When do we start talking as ASMU 252, start talking about contracts for Bolduc and Kirby Dach here?
Well, when it comes to Bolduc, there's no problem. He's an RFA. Let's see how things go. I mean, I don't think that that's going to be necessarily a point of contention. Another aspect that I would say or look into when it comes to Kirby Dach has a $4 million qualifying offer. So you're obviously not going to look into that until you have a little bit more runway to know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
The Canadiens are going to wait till the offseason 100%. My question is, will they even qualify him at $4 million?
Well, I have you talking money. I want to put a couple more questions up before we say goodbye, if you have the time,
Okay.
of course.
Yes.
Explain this to me, and I know I'm not the only one. I'm not shy to ask questions I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
With the Canadiens' cap space, what did I see? Like 1.4 under 1.5, but I thought they were accruing all this cap space. What am I missing?
That is the accrual of the cap space. They have like 300.
Okay.
Yeah, they have like 300,000 in actual or 900,000 in actual cap space.
Okay, I understand now.
And you have to factor in that we're using LTIR from mid-December after the Deneau trade to once Kirby Dach came back from injury, which was in mid to late January. So they weren't accruing in that era in that time at all. So that's why I'm saying, like, it is what it is. Look.
This question here from Stefan, critical of the depth. The third and the fourth lines, according to Stefan, he calls them embarrassing. Alex Texier is a joke and the most premature signing in history's a long time, Steph. History, I'll just say history's a long time, my man.
Yeah. Well, This comment doesn't surprise me. Let's just move on.
Why trade? Mr. Nicely, member of the show. Thanks very much for being a part of our community here. Why trade? Just to play an extra round of the playoffs? I think riffing off Marco's point about maybe protecting yourself that should the summer months roll around and there's a substantial player that potentially could be had, Montreal will have what's required.
Listen, I think I'm of the agreement. I don't think they need to go big game hunting.
Yeah.
I think that would be a mistake. Just because you're going to need those assets for more tangible long-term trades. And I feel like this is the worst time, unless you can get a really good deal. This is the worst time to kind of make those kinds of trades.
Is Jaden Struble dealt at the deadline this summer or not at all?
I don't see how Jaden Struble long-term factors into the top six of this team on the defense when you have Adam Engstrom, who is injured, but looks to be more primed to play in the NHL as soon as right now.
Mm-hmm. People are looking.
That's the way I see it.
Even Arbor Jack guy here from our pal XL. Maybe look at Arbor's value and try to move him now. I mean, like no one's untouchable, but like they need Arbor Jack guy, man. Like I've been saying this for months. They need Arbor Jack guy. You can't be critical of the Canadiens' net front presence, and then at the other side, I'm not saying XL is the one saying this, but you can't be critical of the lack of net front presence and then, want to move Arbor Jack, in my opinion, anyway.
Depends what the offer is. Like everyone's like, oh, you can't trade Jack. Well, what if the player you're getting back is a Ristolainen who's as physical? Right? Like if you're not going to, if you don't want to sacrifice a first round pick, which makes sense, then maybe selling high on an asset makes more sense.
Yeah.
Right. So therein lies the issue, the problem. I think there's a world where Arbor stays, yes, and I think he is improving game by game. I pointed it out to him, last night. But I think ultimately the Canadiens are going to get creative. If you're inquiring about players making $5+ million, beyond this season, it's because they kind of have a vision of what's coming. And listen, Ristolainen is a tough customer, so I can. That is the fit. That is, and I was talking about it at the top of the hour. The Canadiens are looking for grit, physicality in their bottom six and on their defensive core because they have the talent. But I'm wondering what could happen here. Even a guy like Brendan Carlo, like I just saw it in the comments. Brendan Carlo is good, but I think the Leafs have a lot of pressure to try and get a similar return to what they paid for last year this time for Brendan Carlo. I just don't want to get into these bidding wars. I don't want to see the Canadiens. I think it would be short-sighted to see the Canadiens get into a bidding war for a player at this time of the year. I think what the Canadiens do best is when they take advantage of situations that benefit them, like with Noah Dobson, where he used his power with arbitration rights being a year removed from RFA status to jockey and push in the direction that he wanted, which was to land in Montreal. So that's what I see. That's what I'm thinking. And I just don't feel like, especially with the amount of teams looking for right shot defensemen right now, I just don't feel like the Canadiens are going to go for the bigger names. They're going to try and wait it out to see if they can get a value trade.
We spoke about it earlier. Zachary Bolduc, who turned 23 just a couple of days ago, right? I think it was on Tuesday. Healthy scratch in the Canadiens' return post-Olympics. And the ongoing conversation about what happens. As Rod Langway fan club asks, is there a chance Gallagher sits out the second game of a back-to-back in the coming weeks and maybe Zachary Bolduc kind of slots in, Marco?
Yeah, we talked about it. There is going to be opportunity for a rotation. I think it makes sense. But at this point, I think it's too early to tell. Martin St. Louis is going to Martin St. Louis. I can't predict, and I'm not going to try.
Yeah. This from Bernie. Can you see a change in Dobesh's or Monty's technique since the goalie coach change, or is it too soon? Give it a month or so.
Too soon. Give it a month or so.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm
game.
sorry. It's the first game back. You're going to need reps. You're going to need to be in actual game situations. I think you go from there.
Rick says we should go for Jordan Eberle. He can play with Suzuki and Caufield, and his contract is coming to an end.
That's if Seattle wants to move him. right? They're looking to extend a lot of these guys. They want to see what they want moving forward. That's what the holding pattern is. I see a lot of people referring to players on Seattle and Columbus. Those are two teams that have not given up on the playoffs and are actually looking to extend some of these players. You want to talk about Seattle? I think that the player that makes the most amount of sense for the Canadiens on Seattle is not Eberle. It's McCann. It's McCann for me, and I think that would be the best fit. But again, I just don't think the Canadiens are going to go big game hunting for a rental.
Don't forget, you can enter into the draw. That will be done on March 12th. Marco and I will be live from Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. If you have the time, if you're in the hood, come by and say hello. It'd be a pleasure to meet you. And we're going to be doing our VIP draw for luxury transportation to and from the Montreal Canadiens March 17th game against the Boston Bruins. And we're also going to put $200 in your pocket to spend at Morella's Steakhouse, the steakhouse of choice for Starr and D'Amico. You can enter by going to Morella's Steakhouse Instagram page. It is their #1 pinned post. All the details on how to enter that draw are right there. Trust me, it's worthwhile entering. To even if you don't even have the app, just get the app just to enter the contest. Trust me on that. So don't forget, we're going to be doing that draw on March 12th. And of course, if you're looking for a great establishment, our friends at McLean's Pub on Peel Street, always a great place to watch the game in the downtown core. And a shout out to all of our sponsors, the cheapest t-shirts, Insta Customs, and the best in home security with Cabletel. All right, brother. Thanks so much. The time just flew by. A pleasure to be here with you for 70 minutes. Even though I'm under the weather, I'm going to go have some Neocitrin and chill out on the couch. And Marco, go enjoy your family and look forward to seeing you again on Sunday morning.
Sounds great, guys. Shaun, I hope you feel better. And guys, have a great weekend. We'll be back on Sunday with the live early in the morning.